Have you ever got to the point in your life where you're doing what you thought was good for you? You're living out what you planned to do, or you're doing what you thought was best for you, but it turns out that you don't feel good about it. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you just don't feel good. You know in your mind, you've justified to yourself, this is good for this reason, whatever this reason that you've told yourself is. It might make sense to you why you're doing what you're doing. It may even make sense to those around you why you're doing what you're doing, but yet you don't feel connected to what you were doing. Your feelings are disconnected from your everyday life. If you feel this way, and if you've had this experience in your life of this loss of feeling, this loss of passion, this emptiness, this dryness, this void of joy in your life, then take heart, because this is the video for you. There is an answer for you. In the Bible, Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." If you're poor in spirit right now, if you're empty of meaning and purpose, this video is for you. This is the time for you to come back in touch with yourself, back in touch with your feelings. Now, I'm not just talking about depression. You may be depressed, but I am also talking to those people who aren't necessarily depressed, but you kind of have your feelings on autopilot. You're living your life through your thinking, but not so much through your feeling. That's who I'm talking to in this video, and we're going to deal with this together. Now, let me make it clear. When I'm talking about feelings, I'm not simply referring to surface level emotions. I'm talking about the emotional side of your personality, the one that hears the beat drop and starts moving their body according to the feeling of the music, the one that is grateful for life, the one that loves other people, the emotional side of yourself. Just as you have your own thoughts, and you often identify with those persistent thoughts, although we don't identify with fleeting thoughts, but we do begin to identify with our beliefs, which are stronger, deeper thoughts that become a part of our self-concept or our identity. In the same way, we have a feeling structure, mostly unconscious, that makes up who we are. It makes up the feeling side of our personality. Jung talked about the feeling tones of complexes, and that in our unconscious, we have any number of complexes that, if triggered by an external event that touches on a feeling tone, that complex would then draw closer to the energy of the ego, and the libido would be flowing, at least partly, into this complex. In other words, the energy of your psyche is psychodynamically activating a particular unconscious personality, otherwise known as a complex. So within your unconscious, you are made up of multiple complexes or multiple personalities or different aspects of your personality. And these aspects of your personality can be triggered through your feelings. But often we are unconscious of this process, but it shows itself to those who have a keen eye to observe the psychodynamics of personality and behavior. Jung describes how complexes, through feeling tones, have roots in our body when he says, "Whatever has an intense feeling tone is difficult to handle because such contents are somehow associated with psychological reactions, with the process of the heart, the tonus of the blood vessels, the condition of the intestines, the breathing, and the innervation of the skin. Whenever there is a high tonus, it is just as if that particular complex had a body of its own, as if it were localized in my body to a certain extent. And that makes it unwieldy, because something that irritates my body cannot be easily pushed away because it has its roots in my body and begins to pull at my nerves. I like to talk about the feeling side of personality as a living structure, like the roots of a tree, like your nervous system. It looks like this root system. I picture your feelings as not some unimportant emotion, but rather as a structure of your personality, with certain aspects even having their own real estate in your body. That's why some trauma therapies have exercises that involve calming and soothing the body. So all these systems are interconnected, but in our modern world, we downplay the feeling structure or the feeling side of our personality. Jung diagnosed this age with thinking and sensation. So we use our rationality and we focus on the external world of our five senses. But in the same way that we have lost our sense for understanding religion, myth, and symbology, we've lost our touch with intuition and feeling. And a world without these two factors suffers greatly. Society seemingly runs externally, but underground, intuition and feeling are waiting to burst out into culture as a counter-reaction. And that is why you see such odd reactions of feelings throughout society. If we are to treat society like a patient who has outbursts and a personality of its own, you get quite an interesting observation. So let's get back to you and your troubles with feeling. I want to go through some ideas Jung had on feeling before we explore deeper together to get you back in touch with rediscovering your feelings. It's important to understand that feelings aren't just in your head. The fact that trauma therapy pays attention to the body ought to let you know that your feelings aren't just in you. They're through you and around you. They encompass a living reality beyond the constraints you've previously used to conceptualize them. In some sense, you might say your feeling life at a deeper level is your spiritual life, because the most significant and meaningful feelings you'll have will come through these experiences. And this isn't a belief of some otherworldly idea. It's not a concept. I'm talking about a lived experience, a real transformation of your personality that has the tangible effect of shifting the feeling structure of your personality, leaving you changed forever. For example, therapies using psilocybin and MDMA have now been approved in Australia for those suffering post-traumatic stress disorder and so-called treatment-resistant depression. So you have these people who are in the system and the system couldn't help them. So all they've found to help them is to give them these drugs that can shift their feeling structure. It's my opinion that microdosing mushrooms has the potential to shift your feeling structure if it's done in the right way, and a lot of the time the feeling will come up of its own accord. The same thing can happen through therapy, deep meditation, prayer, writing, and all sorts of other methods. Typically, this happens more so over a long period of time as you wrestle through various conscious problems related to your underlying feeling structure. During times of healing, the structure of the feeling side of your personality comes into consciousness, and you see the hurt or the pain that needs to be dealt with and released. Once you see it, you often have the capacity to release it because through your feeling, you've reached a deeper understanding of yourself, and that understanding enables you to be set free. What's the saying? The truth will set you free. But you've been hiding it from yourself. But there's another saying, there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. So if we take these as psychological principles, you can now understand their significance. So I've mentioned quite a few different therapies that can help reveal our unconscious feeling structure to us. Schema therapy is another therapy that helps dig into the organized patterns and structures that underlie a person's personality. That's why schema therapy is used to treat the more chronic personality disorders, because these people's framework for perceiving and understanding the world is maladaptive or self-defeating. The unconscious patterns that influence their life and personality are dysfunctional, and we can learn from this example. Even if you don't have a personality disorder, you may have dysfunctional unconscious patterns, an impaired feeling structure, or in Jungian language, an autonomous complex that disrupts your life. And it takes over your life in such a way that you don't feel like it's within your control. You may refer to it as being stuck in a cycle. If you relate to that experience, then this indicates that the oscillations of your feelings have taken over. You are unable to regulate how you feel effectively, and so you go from high to low in an unstable way. In other words, you require better regulation of your feelings. Or put in another way, you need a better relationship with your feelings. Now, I also wanted to make sure I make it clear that following your feelings is not something stupid. Often, people think of following your feelings as dumb because there are people who are overly emotional who make bad decisions, and it is a widespread perception that this makes following your feelings stupid. However, this is a complete misunderstanding that needs to be addressed. Firstly, ignoring your feelings is what is dumb, okay? You're going to do a lot of damage to yourself if you're ignoring your feelings. At the same time, I'm not advocating to run off your every fleeting whim, riding your emotions out the window to fall to your death. I understand that we can be swept up in our emotions and that it's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about rediscovering your feelings. That's why I described it as a feeling structure, and in clinical terms, it's connected to your body to ground the very real impacts that the feeling side of your personality has in our lives. So again, I'm not talking about overly emotional people who make dumb decisions. I'm talking about the underlying feeling structure that influences your life. Jung actually makes a distinction between highly emotional people and those who are dominant in feeling when he says, emotions are most contagious. They are the real carriers of mental contagion. For instance, if you are in a crowd that is in an emotional condition, you cannot help yourself. You are in it too. You are caught by that emotion. But the feeling of other people does not concern you in the least. And for this reason, you will observe that the differentiated feeling type usually has a cooling effect upon you, while the emotional person heats you up because the fire is radiating out of him all the time. You see the flame of that emotion in his face. By sympathy, your sympathetic system gets disturbed, and you will show very much the same signs after a while. The secret that many people in our world fail to understand is that feeling is the pathway to wisdom. Through feeling, you gain an enormous amount of understanding and intelligence of yourself and other people. For example, emotional intelligence is a psychological concept that basically measures how well you understand and manage your own emotions and manage the emotions of others. Having empathy for others helps you mirror in your own mind an understanding of how the other person is feeling. So through this information, you can act upon the understanding of feelings. You can also use your aesthetic feeling to psychoanalyze people's words, movements, and behaviors. Observing patterns of yourself or others and noticing the feeling you get in your gut or chest from experiencing these patterns in yourself or others. That's literally the secret to being extraordinarily perceptive. You use your feelings to read the patterns of other people, just as you use your feelings to deeply experience music flowing through you. You often feel something bad when it comes to feeling the patterns of other people because there's a lot of darkness out there, and there's a lot of darkness in them. That's an indication within you that gives you understanding. If only you now apply some thinking and let your thinking respect your feeling, an analysis will come up with the greatest insight. You can also use this same method to direct yourself through life. Combining your thinking and feeling will lead you down pathways of wisdom, and you will live out a wise life if you are able to ground your insights into reality. Okay, so let's now look at what Jung said about developing your feeling. So he says, disappointment, always a shock to the feelings, is not only the mother of bitterness, but the strongest incentive to a differentiation of feeling. The failure of a pet plan, the disappointing behavior of someone one loves, can supply the impulse either for a more or less brutal outburst of affect or for a modification and adjustment of feeling, and hence for its higher development. This culminates in wisdom if feeling is supplemented by reflection and rational insight. Wisdom is never violent. Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling. So you see there, Jung links your disappointments in life to a process of modification and adjustment of feeling, which leads to its higher development. He mentioned reflection and rational insight being a supplement to feeling. That leads to wisdom. This is why I always talk about self-reflection, and I've continuously promoted the power of self-reflection. It is so important, but I understand it can sound so mundane, so unimpressive, that you might just dismiss it altogether. However, I'd encourage you to stick with the course, as like anything that you practice, you actually begin to get better at it across years. That's right, across years. You can develop your ability to self-reflect. You can make it even stronger than it is now. Also, note, Jung did not say, reject your feelings and just focus on rational insight. He said, if feeling is supplemented by reflection and rational insight, supplement implies you are to have both feeling and reflection and rational insight. So this is how you reach higher levels of development of your feeling. You live life. You encounter disappointments. Your plans go badly. You fail. You stall. You stumble. Or your relationships, they're not working out. It always seems as if it is other people ruining your otherwise perfect life. Others are causing you a whole lot of disappointment in your life. Maybe you've had an argument, or maybe it's just some things someone said about you or to you. Your interactions with other people are causing you pain and suffering. Okay, so when you experience any of these disappointments in life, you are to sit with that feeling and reflect upon it. You can simply begin by asking yourself, why do I feel this way? Or what do I really feel? And inevitably, an answer will rise up out of you, such as something like, I feel hurt because that person didn't listen to what I said. And then they pushed their own judgments onto me without seeking to understand my situation. You see, that's an example of you talking to yourself about your feeling. This is an example of how you reflect. Now, I'm sorry if this sounds too simple to some of you, but for others, it is an incredible insight. And for those who act upon what I am saying and who continue to reflect on themselves throughout their life, this is an invaluable lesson that you have the opportunity to begin using in your life today. Okay, so once you reflect, you then use your rational insight to help explore your feeling. Okay, let's practice this. That person didn't listen to me, and then they judged me without seeking to understand me. I think it is quite natural to feel the way I do because I've been misunderstood and mistreated. It isn't right that they made a judgment on me without seeking to understand. Therefore, the judgment they made is incorrect. It does not fit the context of the situation I am in. If they had sought to understand, they would have appreciated the reasons I had for doing what I told them I had done, instead of making an inappropriate judgment upon me. I actually do feel a bit better now, because this person wasn't being reasonable, nor were they being charitable. They don't seem to have my best interest at heart. They actually seem quite closed-minded and negative towards me and my ideas. Now that I think about the way they were acting, the words they used, it appeared in the social dynamic between us that there was some tension. And now that I think about it, there were multiple times where they tried to put me down. What type of person does that? Actually, they do appear to be quite insecure within themselves. If I think honestly about it, it did seem that they were putting me down because they feel insecure with themselves. Now that I think about it, I actually feel a lot better because I understand why there was that negative feeling between us. I also feel like they didn't treat me with respect, and I actually value what I was saying, and I respect myself because I feel I acted with integrity. Come to think of it, I don't think I'll be hanging out with this person anymore. Okay, so that was just an example of a self-dialogue that someone might have with themselves. But you have to understand, it's not just about the surface level words I used. For that example to take effect, the person would actually have to be having those genuine thoughts and insights and the corresponding feelings that come with it. And the insights from your reflection and thinking usually have a corresponding impact on your feelings. So your feelings actually shift and you feel the insight. So there is a reaction or a transformation or a communication between your thinking and feeling. It's not just a dead wooden thought process. There is actually a transformation of how you feel. That's the end result of a good reflective process. Now, don't obsess about this. You're not always going to feel great, and sometimes things take time, and the next day you might feel better or be better at reflecting, or even the next week, or even a month later. This is not something you force or you have to get right. This is just about exploration of your feelings, and ultimately, this will strengthen your feelings. It will strengthen your character, and it will lead you to your values and what you really care about. It will teach you what to avoid. It will show you when you've been out of line so you can correct your own behavior. It will reveal to you who others are and how you should respond to them or relate to them in the future, or not relate to them anymore. So I hope this was useful just to provide some more detailed insight into the process of developing your feelings at a higher level. But we're going to continue here with our exploration of rediscovering our feelings. Wouldn't it feel great to be able to think of what you want, take action towards it, and you actually feel fantastic doing it? You feel like you want to be here today. Is that so much to ask for? Well, actually, it is. It is a lot to ask for. Isn't feeling the right way priceless? How you feel, in some sense, is everything. So how you feel is one of the most valuable things in life. So it deserves to be paid attention to. It's what I said in the beginning. How many times have you tried to fill your life with external activity only to result in you having to face the fact that you still feel disconnected from yourself and others? There is still something misaligned between your feelings and your actions. It's not that taking action isn't good, you need it. And sometimes taking action, even if you feel bad, helps. So there is a balance. So make sure you do take action when necessary. But my point here is about addressing the misalignment between your feeling and your internal structure, with your actions and your external reality. And addressing that misalignment sometimes means understanding your values and changing your external reality to reflect that inner conviction and strength. That's what someone who is healthy does. That's the ideal functioning and alignment of your feeling structure with your lived experience. But more often, and I think everyone probably has to go through this, people have to first deal with the misalignment through addressing the impairment in their feeling structure. So addressing the inner functioning so you can adapt to the world better. Now, sometimes when our feeling structure is very maladaptive, we've experienced a lot and it can be difficult to reflect on everything because we've let it build up across time. And we've been through so many disappointments that we've left uncultivated. So what do you do in this situation? All I can say is if you are at the deepest end of your troubles with your feelings, then you need to go to the deepest source of feelings to resolve this issue. What Jung says here will help us understand what the deepest source of feelings are. When he says, the libido, having turned away from the concrete object, its object has become a psychic one, namely God. Psychologically, however, God is the name for a complex of ideas grouped around a powerful feeling. The feeling tone is what really gives the complex its characteristic efficacy, for it represents an emotional tension which can be formulated in terms of energy. The light and fire attributes depict the intensity of the feeling tone and are therefore expressions for the psychic energy which manifests itself as libido. If one worships God, sun, or fire, one is worshipping intensity and power. In other words, the phenomenon of psychic energy as such, the libido. So what can we learn from Jung with what he said here? Well, first off, we can see Jung's conception of God, but I'll do another video as there is a greater context to that. For now, what I want you to get from this quote is that the deepest aspect of our feeling structure is God, or as Jung puts it, the self, or the ultimate unconscious complex that comes with a powerful feeling. So all I can say is in whatever way, however it seems right to you, get in contact with that most powerful feeling deep inside of you and let that feeling heal you. You may like this quote from the Bible that says, "For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes and hear with their ears, understand with their hearts and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear." In addition to self-reflection and seeking the self or God, I want to share some of my personal experiences of getting in touch with my feelings in different ways so you can see some other examples of how this has played out in my own life. And ultimately, it is about revealing what is unconscious. What are your unconscious feelings? And so this can happen in many different ways. I've had many dreams, some of which I've shared on my channel, of reconnecting with my feelings. But those dreams have basically happened automatically for me. So it would be hard for me to say, this is what you have to do. But I can say, write your dreams down and reflect on them, because it definitely will reveal your unconscious feelings. They will appear in your dreams. But other than dreams, you can also have your feelings revealed to you through projection of your own feelings onto others when you relate to them. Or you can know how you feel by reflecting on a particular relationship you have. And often relationships bring insight into how you feel about certain things, or the condition of your feeling structure. So the example I have is actually the relationship I developed with a neighbor's cat. And this cat kept coming over my house. I never fed the cat, but I only pet it. And when it came into my backyard, I would let it into my house. So I'm very grateful for my flesh and blood relationship with this cat, but I'm also aware that this relationship is a symbol of my feelings. The cat made me calmer, less angry, and more at peace with myself and the world. So your relationships with animals, people, places, and with yourself can reveal your feelings and reveal the feeling side of yourself to yourself. If you reflect on that relationship and observe the effect it has on you, this is how you can gain an insight into seeing your underlying structure. And that now gives you an opportunity to meditate on these feelings that come up as you explore them. You can reach a healing state of either appreciating how you feel, or releasing how you feel, or transforming how you feel. But it's the insight and awareness that gives you access. It's the meditation and reflection that helps you explore. Then that should lead you into the feeling itself, which is a state that you engage with depending on the situation through either appreciation, releasing and forgiving, or challenging and transforming. So another time I was in a meditative state, and I was also talking with my friend in quite a therapeutic way, and my own feeling structure came into my awareness. It came up of its own accord, and I was suddenly conscious of the fact that I had an underlying belief that I was worried about what other people thought of me, or was hurt from the judgments of others. It was also revealed to me through feelings of revelatory insight that this belief was formed from early childhood when members of my family would make judgments and say negative things about my mother. And I could recall specific statements said by various people about myself and my mother. In this state, I felt the pain of the judgment and abuse that I felt from others, and I questioned what these people had said out loud as a conversation with my friend. So I broke down what these people had said. I psychoanalyzed it and came to the understanding that their judgments had no legitimacy over defining who I was as a person. They were not helpful or constructive judgments. They were oppressive and abusive judgments, and I am challenging them both logically and morally through talking out my point of view to my friend. So in other words, within the state where I had entered into the feeling, I had changed the meaning through proclaiming a new judgment based on both my thinking and feeling of my past experiences. So this is an example of what I mentioned earlier, of challenging and transforming your feeling structure. So other methods, such as appreciation, are a bit different. So for example, I often appreciate how I feel about myself and what I've done in my life. So I often reflect on the diversity of things I've learned and experienced, and I appreciate that diversity about myself. So I create a positive feeling relationship with myself and my past experiences. So for example, I've gone through my work history, and although there were some negative moments, I processed my life experiences in this area enough that overall, I have a very positive emotional relationship with my conception of my experience at work and what all of it means to me. So it is about creating a positive relationship to the different areas and the different structures of your life as perceived and conceptualized within yourself. In other words, you are emotionally in harmony with the different aspects of your life. For some, it is about relating through your feeling to your body, to how you feel about your family, or to your creative projects, or to God. There's so many different situations and circumstances someone can face, but it is about how you relate through your feeling structure to the different areas of your life. And a wise person over time seeks to harmonize these different aspects within themselves, understanding more about how to connect through their feeling with themselves and others, and enabling that feeling of harmonization to flow through their life, which leads to a life of wisdom. What is on the inside is in alignment with what is on the outside, and vice versa. You are congruent in personality and in reality. And the patterns within yourself and the patterns out in the world are working together because you've learned to become yourself. You've processed your feelings so that now they can become a better guide to leading you towards your destiny. My hope for you is a life full of meaning and significance, and that you may actually feel this in your life throughout your journey. If you've liked this video, then please leave a comment sharing your experience and share the video with others you think it might help. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.